们开始了。
Hello, everyone. We will start in 1 minute. Okay, let's start. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to EIA mini series workshop on social media. I'm Dr. Xiding Luo, your old friend, EIA Executive Manager of Partnership and Engagement. Nice to see you again for everyone who with us in last week's workshop. And in last week, Professor Dicky Shack provided us a fantastic workshop on web evolution and its impact to digital marketing. For anyone who was not able to attend or missed that workshop, please check EIA Facebook website. You can find the complete recorded video there. And as you all know, the purpose of this 3 mini series workshop running by EIA is to introduce you to social media and the digital marketing, and to help everyone familiar with EIA Bachelor of Marketing course and its units. As usual, I would like to thank you everyone for your attendance today. We have students from different course level with different background, and we have students from our offshore partners, Huaxing International College. It's nice to see your lovely face again in this week. And also we have many attendants who were agents or students from other colleges or universities. Thank you for joining. We hope you have an enjoyable time. In today's workshop, we feel so honored to have Mrs. Natalie O'Brien here to give us a presentation on developing loyal consumers and attain strong market positioning. Mrs. O'Brien is a leading industry figure and has recently launched her own consultancy firm. Her contribution to Australia's food, wine, and the tourism industry is recognized through a collection of awards. Natalie was appointed a member of the Order of Australia in the 2019 Australian Day Honours List for significant service to tourism and food and wine associations. She sits on senior boards and committees, including the Global Table Advisory, Victoria University Visitor Economic Advisory Committee, and Global Business College of Australia. She also involves in the development of EIA Bachelor of Marketing units, like units of consumer behavior and the units for customer relationship management. So now let's welcome Natalie O'Brien.
Thank you so much, Dr. Xiding, and good afternoon to everyone. It is a great delight to be part of the webinar series this afternoon. My topic for today is really about loyal customers and how do we attain those customers so that we build brand. And what I would like you all to do in your own heads is actually reflect back on the last week and think of an experience that you may have had that was either a really positive experience. Was it that you went down the street to buy a tea or a coffee and the barista was warm and engaging? The coffee was just the way you liked it and they greeted you with your name? Or on the other hand, was the experience not necessarily a positive experience? So I want you to channel that and think of that in your own mind as we run through this afternoon's webinar. Before we actually jump into the webinar, I just wanted to give you some context of my background and why I'm so interested in terms of the customer experience. In the left-hand side of the picture is my grandmother. I come from 4 generations of families who run hotels and hospitality. And I think that I learnt many lessons as a young child about customers and treating customers well, in terms of seeing it as a true service, in terms of the ability to tell stories, to make sure that that experience that those customers were having created really great word of mouth and people sharing that experience to other people. I spent the rest of my career working, as Dr. Siding said, in tourism and in hospitality and events. I spent 14 years running an event called the Melbourne Food and Wine Festival. And what was incredibly important to us on top of the marketing was making sure that the experience that those 5 million customers that we had during my time at the festival had a great experience right the way through the journey, from receiving the email or the social media or the ad in the newspaper or the billboard, whatever the marketing communication is making sure that that experience and that expectation is met all the way along the customer journey. So let's move into the presentation in terms of what is customer experience and why is it important. This is a quote that I particularly like. It talks about customer service is the experience we deliver to our customer. And it's the promise that we keep to the customer. It's how we follow through with the customer, and it's how we make them feel when they do business with us. And I guess in marketing terms, we would talk about this is building equity in the brand or the service that we might be managing on behalf of somebody. So what we're really saying is that every point along that journey needs to be a positive experience. And we know, as being consumers ourselves, that's not always the case. And how do we step outside our shoes and actually observe those experiences all along the train to make sure that we can correct some of the issues along the customer experience? I want to give you a little example of how customer experience plays and how having a strong customer experience means you can charge more for that experience. For those of you who are listening offshore, people in Melbourne and in Australia indeed love their coffee, and it's very much a part of the Melbourne hospitality scene, and many of the students that would be at EIA would come accustomed to Melbourne's tradition. But I wanted to use it this afternoon to explain how the experience economy can charge a premium because it's a strong experience. So if we look at the trade price of coffee, for example, it might be only a couple of cents if we were to buy the beans from South America and buy that commodity. But as we move through the different stages and add experience to it, we can charge a premium price. So for example, when a manufacturer roasts that coffee and sells it at a grocery store, they'll be selling it as a markup on the retail price. In Australia, and I'm sure overseas, if we go to service centres or petrol stations, we're able to buy convenience coffee that is of a reasonable quality, but might only be $2, for example, in terms of Australian dollars. But the final scenario is if we build a really strong experience around that coffee, we can charge a premium price. So imagine that you're sitting in a beautiful environment, hearing some music in the background that is pleasant. You were greeted really positively. The coffee is served the way you like it, a little bit hotter or a little bit colder than perhaps the normal standard, that there is a chance that we're willing to pay a premium price for that. So I think it's a really great example that we can see a commodity moving all the way through the system and can be marketed at a higher price because it has this sense of experience in it. The next stage I wanted to work through is the way that when I work in a practical sense with any sort of brand, it could be a product or a service, I take them through these 4 stages in the process. So the first stage is really creating that customer experience strategy, identifying what is that unique purpose or that unique selling proposition for your particular activity or service. The second phase is really looking at what do I need to change in my marketing channels or the way that I communicate with people that will make the experience a stronger experience for the customer. Then, very importantly, how do I measure? And I think if you leave out any of these stages, that you're missing the opportunity to deliver better. So measuring and feedback in terms of what that experience is like is really important. And then the final stage is obviously, what are the results? How do I judge whether I've done a good job in the marketplace? And this delivers things like more loyal customers, customers spending more money, or growing the profits. So if we move into the first stage, just to explain what I mean by the first stage. So this is really developing that customer experience strategy. And there's half a dozen things that I like to include in this one. First of all, what is the purpose? What is the overarching purpose for the particular marketing campaign that you are about to promote? Then a SWOT analysis is really looking at what are the business's strengths, weaknesses, what are the opportunities, and what are the threats? What are the other companies that may be in this marketplace? It's always really important to look at competitive insights, is having a look at other products or services that are in the same category as you and determine what are the things that are really strong and valuable that they deliver, or what are the things that you could take on board that you could incorporate as part of your marketing plan. Consumer research is really important, and there are many available sites with data and insights in terms of consumer sentiments. The final part of your plan really looks at the channels. Reviewing the channels and looking at the data is really important. What is the messaging that people are positively responding to? What are the channels that are working more strongly than other? In social media, are we finding that through research, people are using the websites or digital channels, and what channels and how regularly and what time are they using them? And then when we have all of this information, we're able to develop our customer journey. And the customer journey is the process a customer goes on from the very beginning when they see the advertising in marketplace, all the way through the process to purchasing something and then hopefully becoming a positive advocate for that particular product. I just wanted to do a small exercise with you, which is really referring to the purpose. If you are the marketing graduate student that's working for a business in your first job, and you're really trying to find the real purpose and the real pointy edge of your business. I love some of the work that Simon Sinek does, and you can see some great TEDx video links of Simon Sinek, but he talks about the why. And I'm going to give you an example of how this would play out is when you look at your product and you're able to determine the why, you're going to get a competitive edge in the marketplace. So for this afternoon, I'm going to pretend that I run a nail varnish shop and talk about what would my what be? And the what is, what are the products or services that I'm going to sell? And I guess I would respond in terms of I'm going to sell nail varnishing. And then if I move into a higher order and say, these are the things that are special or set me apart from my competitors in the marketplace. This is indeed your how. And so it may be that you have more colours than other competitors. It may be that you have organic products that you use. It's a point in your product that actually differentiates you from the other competitors in the marketplace. But if you can really work with your product to establish your why, it's the purpose, cause or belief. It's the very reason that you are wanting to promote this business. And for a nail varnish, it may be that you want to provide colour in people's life. It may be that you just want to make people happy. And if you look at how that presents in your marketing message, you can see that from varnishing nails to having organic products to actually changing people's lives and making them happy is a much higher order proposition. So when you are doing your plan and you're looking at your purpose, it's really important to do these exercises where you can really draw in on the real point of difference, the part of the product or service who really connects with the emotion of the customer. I just wanted to move into some of the global trends that are really important to feed into your marketing plan. Every year in January, there is a couple of organisations that release their consumer data. One of them is called Mintel, and the other one is JWT Intelligence. And I love downloading these reports to find out globally what's happening in the world that will be changing the way that consumers behave and interact with products and services. And so for 2020, no one would have seen the sorts of experience that we've gone through. But rising out of that, there are all sorts of different beliefs and values that customers are experiencing. So things like well-being. We've seen a real shift in consumers really looking at physical and mental and health and well-being in terms of the way products and services are presented to them. Feeling respected and protected, really looking at value that are intangible are some of the sorts of insights and values that consumers are taking to them when they go to market. So organisations need to be mindful of the sorts of values that consumers are really placing high priority on. We also know that experiences are a really big part of what people are wanting to spend their money on. So it's no longer people wanting to just buy a product, but actually testing that product, whether it's a cooking utensil, and actually being part of the experience, not just the transactional consumer experience that once was something that we were happy with. And then the environment. We all know, particularly with Gen Y and Gen Z, that working with brands that really respect the environment and sustainability are really important parts of the consumer journey and the consumer messaging. I want you now to reflect back to an experience that you've had recently, and I want you to choose whether that was your positive experience or your negative experience in terms of a purchase or an experience that you've had recently. And we're just going to work what we call a customer journey map. And basically what we're doing is looking at what that experience was like for the customer from the very start all the way through to work out, are there any areas that we can change in that experience? So in order to do a customer journey map, in your mind, you have to develop what is the persona or the behaviors of the person that's going through this experience. And what is the scenario? Is it as simple as buying a coffee, or was it purchasing something online, or was it your last experience on a holiday in a hotel or a restaurant? And what we do in customer journey mapping is look at 5 key stages. And these key stages start with awareness. What is it that you know about this particular experience or brand? Where are you getting the information from? Then there's the consideration period, the period where you research information or have information sent to you about that particular experience. Then there's the purchase time. How was the purchase time? Was it easy? Was it seamless? Was the person serving you helpful and supportive? Was the website that you were ordering on easy and clear to follow? And then were you onboarded? Did the particular organisation then reach out to you to make you part of their ongoing audience through social media or through newsletters or through their community? Did they take you on board and make sure that you're a customer that keeps coming back to purchase? And then the final area is advocacy. Are you then an advocate for this business because the experience was so positive that you want to tell many, many more people about this wonderful experience that you've had? And I want you, when you do this process, is actually take your mind through the different opportunities and pain points that might have experienced during that period so that you're able to adjust that as a marketer in this space. So really the pain points that you're looking at, what are the touch points? What are the emotions that the customer might have experienced during that process? What are the solutions and what are the areas that could be improved? So it's a really good exercise, and I have to try and stop myself when I go to a restaurant or to a hotel when I look at what the journey was like. And if it starts off really positively and it breaks down because the person on reception wasn't warm or friendly or the room wasn't ready, it really is the opportunity to fix those pain points, if you like, so that the experience is much more seamless along the journey. The second phase is then the opportunity to actually redesign the marketing and the product so that you're able to offer your organization some solutions in that customer experience. And so I look at the 5 Ps in this process. So the first one is really the people, and that's incredibly important. What are the opportunities to make sure that the service is very, very positive one, making sure the attitudes of the staff are warm and engaging? What is the training that might need to be done with people to make sure that that customer experience is the best one that can be? And then the opportunity for storytelling. How do you create the stories that can be shared amongst other people? So you may go to a hotel, but you hear this lovely story about a garden down the road that has flowers that bloom at that one time of the year. How do you enhance the experience of somebody by sharing the local stories of that destination? The second is obviously the product. If you're going to a restaurant, for example, you need to make sure that the food is of a standard and the wine or the beverages that you consume are really positive. And so it's important to make sure there's consistency of that product as well. Then moving into place, what are the aesthetics? What's the music like? What's the visuals like? What are the chairs like? Are they comfortable? Are really important parts of that overall experience. And then I think price is a really interesting one. And I think if we reflect in our own experiences, is value for money is really just placing value on what experience you had. I think that people don't mind paying a lot of money if they really value the wonderful people, the product, the beautiful place, places a high value on it, and therefore people are about to pay more money for it. And then finally, and most importantly, is really the promotion. And again, really looking analytically at all of the different channels that the customers are using, are finding easy to use, and then also looking at what is the message and the content, and are you delivering on that content as well? So stage 2 is really about the ability to change the parts of the consumer experience to make sure that everyone's consumer experience is the best that it can be. I just wanted to leave a couple of examples. I'll just pull 2 out of here that really showed how finding some of the small glitches in a product can make that experience quite seamless. There is a restaurant chain in Australia called the Coffee Hut. And the Coffee Hut serves coffee, but it also is quite famous for serving mushroom toasted sandwiches. And it was a member of the team working in the marketing team that noticed there was a lot of negative feedback on social media talking about the fact that the mushrooms were cut too small and too finely and didn't really feel like the texture or the generosity if you had larger mushrooms. Overnight, they changed the mushrooms and made them much more larger and generous, and overnight sales increased. So it's really an example of having a look at what part of the communication or what part of the experience might need to be changed. The second one was feedback that was taken by customers who were perceiving a particular accommodation not clean. And in actual fact, when they sort of really researched and have a look at the feedback, it was really that the grout in the tiles was dark and was perceived unclean. So again, there are a whole number of ways through either social media or directly connecting with customers that you're able to get the feedback to find out if that experience is a positive one. This was an article I pulled out to sort of have a look at some of the brands that appear really strongly in their customer experiences. If you're a car insurance company, the sorts of qualities that people would want to be looking for is excellent response, timeliness, attentive people. Yet if you're a hardware company, you're looking for an experience where it's really clear about all of the sorts of detail of how a particular tool or equipment could be used. I guess in terms of really making sure that that customer experience is readdressed, there is a number of things that could be done as quick fixes. So anyone working in an organisation that has done that customer experience journey can then look at the sorts of things that might be adjusted to make that a far more positive experience. The third phase is really that measure and feedback. Is how do we use valuable insights, whether they're positive or negative for customers, to change the marketing communication piece or the experience itself? How do we make sure that the staff are satisfied and are making sure that they're improving the experience for the customer as well? Another important tool is observation. We're looking at feedback, social media, the way customers interact with the brand, whether they're in a retail store, is always be looking and looking at how people receive the customer experience. Third-party reviews are also really valuable in terms of analysing booking engines, looking at digital platforms, and looking at what the customers are saying. So once again, you can change that product. Some people use Net Promoter Score. Earlier today, I was at the petrol station filling the car up, and as I paid for my petrol, a sign came up to sort of press whether I had a happy experience, an okay experience, or a sad experience. So again, being aware of how do we track that our customers are having a good experience. And then mystery shoppers is another way where it is an opportunity to, again, check in on how the customer is having their experience. And I guess all of this energy is really to be a competitor in whatever category it might be that you're marketing for. And the idea would be to grow profits, is to make sure that the staff, right through the organisation, marketing through to employees, are projecting a positive experience to those people engaging with your business. Brand loyalty, we know that if we can retain customers, it is a much cheaper way than trying to attract new customers constantly. And we know if we satisfy customers that they're going to spend more, come more frequently, and tell many more people to come and purchase from our business or product or service. These are just a couple of quotes that I really like about the customer experience. The first one is from HubSpot, which is a wonderful platform that I like to refer to that has a lot of information on customer experience. It says, feedback is the breakfast of champions. If we don't know what's right, we can't do more of it. If we don't know what's wrong, we can't do less of that either. And without customer feedback, we are destined to fail. And I think it really does, this quote, put a really strong emphasis on the customer. And the other one I think is really important. I think there's a statistic that says 66% of communication comes from word of mouth. So this particular quote says, word of mouth is the most valuable form of marketing, but you can't buy it, you have to deliver it, and you have to really deliver it. And I think the extension of that is through digital marketing, is that if someone has a bad experience and has 4 million people on their social media, they have the ability to share that much more broadly than you would traditional word of mouth. And the final one is every single interaction, the most minute details of that interaction you have with your customer is the opportunity for you to create something really remarkable. So thank you so much, everyone, for the opportunity to talk about customer experience and how important the customer is in terms of the marketing journey to ensure that every interaction from the very first to the very last is a very positive one, so that you can continue to grow a relationship and a very long-term relationship with that customer going forward. So thank you. I might stop here and create the opportunity for any questions from anyone listening online.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you for sharing us your experience on how this customer experience will impact the market and everyone's business. So is there any question? Please feel free to raise.
Anyone want to ask any questions? Any questions?
Don't forget to unmute yourself when you have any questions.
They're too shy to ask.
That's okay. That's okay. Can I ask a question back in terms of understanding some of the subjects that the students are studying at the moment?
Yep, sure.
Yes. Ms. O'Brien?
Yes.
Yes, please ask your question.
So I was really, thank you, really interested to find out some of the subjects that the students are currently studying in the marketing area at the moment.
I have a question, Ms. Natalie.
Yes.
Hello? Yeah, I have a question. So let's say a business's reputation is like damaged through, I don't know, like a series of bad customer service or like bad products. How can a business attain new customers like loyalty back again?
Yes,
like,
thank you.
As you know, that like usually feedback or bad products can create distrust, and it's hard to build that trust again.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. I think that one of the important things with getting feedback is firstly about the timeliness, is to make sure that it's easy for a customer to give that feedback. So we all know that we've walked away from purchasing something or having an experience and it might be negative. And if we don't have very obvious channels to communicate that back really easily, what we often do is tell lots of people and share that negative experience more broadly. So I think one of the things, if you're the business, is to make sure that you've got easy channels. It might be a follow-up text when you leave that business. It might be actually asking somebody when they're leaving the restaurant or the particular activity and asking them, did they have a good time, is really important. I think the second thing is to make sure that when you get that feedback from a customer, that you actually respond and acknowledge it. And so that you do that really quickly. I think that, again, if we put ourselves into that shoe, if we have a complaint about a particular experience, we want to be heard, and we want to be heard really quickly in terms of what that particular situation was. So, and then I guess you also want to make sure that the business has taken that feedback on and amended that particular thing so that the team learn from it and the business doesn't necessarily make that mistake again. So I think that they're really important. And I think we've also seen that on social media, how sometimes some bad experience can be projected very, very quickly and virally when somebody has a really bad experience. So I think it's really important to make sure that you get onto it quickly. And it may be that you choose to offer that person another opportunity to come back and connect with your business. Or if it was a complaint about a particular product, is that you may send another product really quickly so that you can overcome that bad experience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Natalie. Now I think the customer experience and their feedback is crucial, not for every industry. It's not only hospitality and restaurants, but also like in education industry. If we can have a very good student feedback from some graduates, and then the future students are more easy to think, to be persuaded, and they think these courses are more suitable to them. They will more rely on the student testimonials, all these things, not then the words promoted by the staff.
Absolutely. I think, Dr. Siding, in terms of testimonials, are a really powerful way for people, and whether they're students, to really endorse your product. And I think it's really important to capture the positive experiences. So when students feedback that they, had a really great induction, for example, or they felt that the lecturers were, enabling them to channel into a whole lot of extra information, whatever the feedback is, it's really important to package that positive feedback and share that, because testimonials from people are a really powerful way of sharing positive experiences about your brand. Absolutely.
And also, I think all the employers and the company need to think from the customer's perspective to really know what they need, what they want, and then the products could be better designed.
Absolutely. And I think that because the environment continues to become competitive, that really focusing on customer experience, I believe, is really powerful, and a really strong point of differentiation is when the marketplace is completely busy. It's really important to make sure that your product all the way through. And I think one of the things that we can do is step outside the business that we're working in or an experience that we've had and take ourselves through that journey. And it may be that the journey starts off perfectly, and then it gets to a point whether it's actually converting and paying for the product that becomes frustrating and becomes a pain point, which ruins the positive experience that you've had all the way down. So I think it's an important thing for organisations to do regular health checks in terms of what that experience looks like. I actually had a client who was a winery, and it was a particularly long established winery. And on their website, for example, they had a whole lot of photos of a much older demographic, and what they were proposing to do was to market and talk to a much younger demographic, because they had a new wine product that was perfect for this young demographic. But they hadn't actually realised what the customer journey looked like. They may be doing really strong ads in the newspaper that had lots of young people consuming this new product. But when people went to their website, the imagery that they had projected on their website was much, much older people, which would have been a negative feeling for anybody, a younger person going on the website. So they had created the product that was of the right sweetness and taste for the particular market. They had created ads that had young people in them, targeted them in magazines that were where young people would find them, but they'd missed a step in the middle when the website itself was discouraging, because it had people that perhaps looked like the buyer's grandparents on the website. So again, sometimes people might miss an opportunity which could be easily changed with new images and the ability to have a seamless customer experience all the way through.
Exactly. I talked to a partner yesterday, and he showed me a video which recorded a journey of a real customer. It was really impressive. And I think it's more persuasive than some product introductions or just on the brochures.
I think that's true. I think that it's far more authentic. And I think that if we look at customer insights and sentiment, is people are looking for genuine, authentic experiences. So I think placing real customers in the communications channels is a really great way of giving that authentic feel to the communication that you put in the marketplace.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Do we have any questions from Huasheng student?
You have questions? I have a question of my own.
Yes.
Yeah, a friend of mine, she owned a cafe in China, and because the coffee shop is new and she doesn't have much customers, like loyalty customers, so she's a little bit concerned about her profits. And is there any strategy that you can recommend to increase her customer and her revenue? Like, what strategy do you recommend to make her business much more successful?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question because it's a very practical one. In terms of, obviously, a new business needs to work really hard to get customers in the first place. So what I would think would be one of the strategies is that any customer that comes into that new cafe is obviously really very, very precious, is potentially looking at a scheme where if that loyal customer brings a friend or a work colleague or a student into the coffee shop, they get to shout their friend the first coffee free, so that I guess they're extending the audience that they have a little bit further. I also think that there's obviously an opportunity for some testimonials on social media, and obviously the ability to work closely with some of the clients that have become strong customers in the first instance as well. I think, I'm not sure what the product offering is, but potentially if people are coming in to buy just their coffee, what are the other incentives or product ranges that could be added to increase the actual spend of that particular customer as well? So I think you would be looking to, one, bring in more new customers, making sure that every part of that experience is a positive one so that you can build them. And then secondly, how do you look at the other product offerings that might be complementary that would increase the spend of the customers that she does have? But I would have to say that anyone that's starting in a new business is really challenging. And I think the other thing, it would be interesting for your friend or colleague to go and have a look at the competitors and to see what the experience is like for the competitors. I think that you can, as I said earlier, learn really positive things, but also things you might not do that competitors do as well. So there's just a couple of things. And I think that new businesses is just to stick with it and make sure every part of that customer experience is the best that it can be.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. I have recommend her that to sell some cakes or bakeries with and associate with other bakeries to sell the coffee like in a combo, so that might increase the customer flow as well. I hope
Absolutely. So. And I think that when you pair up with another product, if there is another bakery that's local that has a really good following behind it, is making sure that if it's not your expertise to create that added value product, is then make sure that you match up with somebody who's got a good following and a good brand reputation as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your suggestion.
Oh, a pleasure.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have one question. Thank you so much, Natalie, for all your sharing all this grateful information with us. My question is, when you're doing the follow-up to your customers, when do you know that it's like maybe too much, and maybe there are some customers like they feel like it's like, you know, like too much? So how do you recognize like what is the right way to do the follow-up, but at the same time don't over follow, you know, to the customer?
Yes.
So what could be like a good suggestion for that? Thanks.
Thank you. That's a great question as well. It's really interesting because I think a lot of businesses, or some businesses rather, don't allow any opportunity for feedback at all. And I think that's when, as customers, and again, if we put ourselves in that those shoes, is when we get really cross and angry. We want to tell people about that negative experience, but finding the right solution for your particular clientele is really, really critical. I think that you also can't underestimate actually asking people at the time. When you see that someone might be agitated because they're not getting the service that they need, it may be that really well-trained staff can make sure that they deal with that issue on the spot because they're observing it. And so for some businesses and for some customers, acting immediately, intervening if you're the manager or if you're the marketing manager and hear that the website's not working as seamlessly as it should, is acting on the spot is really powerful as well. I think that different people like to respond to the feedback differently. So for some people, it might be once they've left, you send a little survey that is very brief and short, talking about whether the experience was a positive or a negative one. And then the other thing is to have, some people might go home, have dinner, and then when they've sort of later in the evening, they remember the bad experience and really want some ability to communicate that to the organisation. So I think potentially having something on the website where people 24/7 have the ability to actually put that comment in writing and to make sure that whilst it might not be followed up immediately, at the earliest, and I talked about timing a little while ago, is making sure that it's responded to quite quickly. There are other ways of getting feedback. I mentioned earlier, when I was at the petrol station this morning, I was trying to put petrol in my car and I was pulling the tube, and the man in this petrol station was getting quite agitated, and he actually yelled out over the loudspeaker, "Stop pulling the petrol." And he was very, very gruff when I went to pay my petrol. And in front of me was those smiley face net promoter scores. Are you happy with the service? Dissatisfied? And I didn't feel like saying it, but I was very cross with him for making me feel, so bad in putting my petrol in. But it may be the next time that I go that I might explain it. So I think the point is having a number of different opportunities, whether it's on the spot, whether it's a survey when people leave as a proactive step, or whether it's a website where it says really positively, "We are so keen to hear what you've experienced. Please put the comments in and we'll follow up really quickly." And I also think sometimes we can respond in writing, but there's nothing like somebody from an organisation calling you to say, "Look, is this a good time? I'm really sorry that you've had the experience, and we're going to make the change, or we'd like to offer you the experience again." So I think you're very right. You don't want people harassing you all the time. Sometimes we're just too busy and we don't want to vent, but I think it's just making it as easy as possible for customers to give feedback in a variety of ways.
Yeah, that sounds good. Great. Thank you so much.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Natalie, I've got a question.
Yes.
Loyalty used to be a great part of customer behaviour. For a variety of reasons, loyalty is rapidly disappearing from a whole range of components of people's lives. In the marketing domain, how do we deal as marketing professionals with the lack of loyalty or losing loyalty in so many areas today?
Thank you. That's a terrific question. I think that loyalty is obviously different for different customers, and sometimes I look at the marketing efforts of loyalty programs where if you buy a certain amount of shampoos, for example, and you get one for free, is that marketers see that as loyalty. And again, it's really about knowing your audience, I think. And so for me personally, I would prefer to have somebody greet me, know what products I've used, give me explanation of new products, tell me about the merits of that product, somebody who's familiar to me and looks after me as a customer is something that I personally appreciate more, rather than having a free bottle of shampoo for every 10th purchase of the shampoo. But I think it's a really interesting one. As the market continues to become competitive, it is often hard to keep customers who like to choose the next best thing. But I can't help thinking I have a very strong philosophy about customer experience, is that if we continue to review our offering and make sure that we're servicing the customers in the way that they appreciate, and that we start learning about our customers. Here's a particular customer who loves to come in, spends a lot, but needs quick service, etc. So I think in a lot of ways it's really taking time to understand the different customers and audience we have, and then focus on delivering marketing communication to them in the way that services them best. I think there's going to be a certain percentage of the market that will continue to sort of float around, but I think the customer's really looking for deep, authentic experiences. And so I think a real focus on customer is a way, I believe, to create loyalty. And Reece, you'll know that obviously keeping customers is a much cheaper and more cost-effective way than trying to find new customers all the time.
Thanks. That's great.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Any questions?
Okay.
No.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you for all the questions. Most of the above information is covered in EIA Bachelor of Marketing course and some units like customer behavior and consumer behavior and customer relationship management. So we would sincerely invite students who are interested in this topic and the digital marketing to come to our classroom and study with us. And in next Tuesday, 3:30 p.m., we will have the last part of our 3 mini workshop series. EIA course coordinator, associate professor Peter Vitatus will bring us the presentation in the topic of informing social media design through digital marketing tools. Please secure your time for this following workshop, and we are looking forward to seeing you soon. And in addition to the above, this Thursday, 11 a.m., we will have our EIA Virtual Open Day. You can see the live stream on EIA social media platforms. And all you want to know about EIA, our course, our student support, our career center, and the campus will be introduced. So please do not miss it. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Natalie. And that's all for today's workshop. Hope everyone enjoy it, and see you next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.